Guys, Gunners Collective. Back at it? You already know. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And another one. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Like a mug. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Like a mug. Smack at it. Ba-ya. 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 Oh, there it is. You can tell by that thumbnail right there. We did the hardest Southsider. We did the hardest Bulldog on the yard. And now it's time, Huelga, in a Menudo style in a direct fashion, to talk about the hardest Norteño that I ever done time with, that I ever met. One vato that I could say stands out amongst the rest. You know, I met a lot of hard individuals in my time, but this vato right here has gained the utmost respect for me, has kept it consistent in the way he wiggles, and just was about that business and continues to be about his business. His mentality has never wavered. You know, in the 32, 33 years that I've known this guy, his mentality has always been the same. It never wavered. He was always full go, full 60 about the business. A true believer, a firm believer in the Norteño cause, the struggle, the forever forwardness. Like I said, he never gave up the ghost, man. Of course, many people try to push him into obscurity, but even in his city, his town of Salas, he is still well respected. He is still talked about. He's of legendary status just based on some of the movidas he was involved in, his status at one point in time, and just the righteousness and the way he carried himself, the professionalism. Now, there's been a lot said about this individual. People have always spoken his name, and you're going to have contrasting views of him. Some people are going to say, man, that Vato's really not about that. He wasn't really like that. You know what I mean? He applied a little bit of pressure. I'm saying, guard! You know, how much pressure? No, that Vato applied pressure. You know, and then you're going to have guys like myself who really know this guy, really know his mentality and what he was about since a kid, and will say, man, you got the game messed up. This Vato was about it. I'm talking about Spooky, the Islas Casitas, Salas, Salinas area. Now, when I say the city of Salas, I say it with revere. I say it with respect. You know, the city of Salinas in Northern California is the Mecca of Nortenos. It's considered our Islos. You know, there's so much cultura, rich, deep history in the Norteño cause. So many hitters and so many people of legendary status that have come out of that city. I could sit here and tell stories all day, but they'd be rehashed stories. They'd be other men's stories and their fame and their glories, right? When it comes to Spukio, you know, he grew up on them streets. You know, he grew up out there gang banging, you know, as a lot of young Mexicanos, Chicanos do in the city of Salas. You know, you would think the size of Salas and how small it is, that they wouldn't really be about that business, and you'd be gravely mistaken. You know, everyone from north to south to Crip to whoever is in Salinas, they got a little bit of thug in them. They got a whole lot of thug in them. It's just a mentality that's ingrained over generations. See, it's a generational city, kind of like Islos, and that's why it reminds me of that. You're laced with your culture, your Mexicana culture. It's infused at a very young age. You know, the Norteñoism that's going on around there, it's easily seen. It's everywhere, whether it's on graffiti, you know, whether it's in the way Vatos are just kicking back, carrying themselves. I've been to Salinas many a times, and every time I went, you see youngsters, hairnets, red paños. It just takes you back. Ben Davis's creased up, red Cortezes. It's like going through a time zone. It's like going back to the 80s and 90s era all over again. At least this is how it was when I used to go to Salas. I don't know how it is now, and I won't speak on how it is now. But one thing I do know for sure is Salinas has always been revered as the Mecca or the stronghold or, you know, headquarters for Northern California. You know, that's where everything ends up. That's where it started. Now, Spooky, you know, when I met him as a young kid in Fred C. Nelson CYA, I took it with a grain of salt. It was just meeting another Norteño, another homeboy. Yes, I was happy to meet one. When he said he was from Salas, I was like, okay, now I already knew he had to be with the activities. He had to be with the program, because that's just how the homeboys from Salas wiggle. They always had this notorious way of letting it be known Salas was in the motherfucking casa. You know what I mean? It was always better to live in a little house than live on them streets, right? This was the saying that Spooky ingrained in my mind. This is what he always told me. Being from Casitas, you know, it was a water that in the 90s, they really wiggled. They were very well known. They were involved in a lot of guerra, a lot of war, and handled their business, established their barrio name. You know, you had barrios, old school barrios like the Fruit Stand Gang original, You know, a lot of Norteno gangs, as well as gangs like Samsters and then Acosta Plaza, and then of course the Bahamas and all this that came into play later on down the line. But one thing I will say for sure is Casitas and Samsters were the pretty much the most well-known gangs up out of the Salinas area, Salas. And the homeboy being from Casitas, he got a little bit of respect, a little bit more respect than the average Vato, just based on the Vato said Salas. You know what I mean? Where you from? I'm from Salas. When you hear that, being a Norteño, you're taking a step back. It's kind of like Vatos that are from certain barrios down south. There's certain barrios that their barrio rings so much respect. Where you from? I'm from White Fence. Damn right. You know what I mean? Clanton. And Vatos are like, all right, now I see you. Because this hood or this barrio has been involved or ingrained in so much mentalities and has so much respect that anyone that's from there, you're going to give them that ultimate respect. So anyways, meeting Spooky as a youngster, his mind and mentality was a lot different than the rest of the homeboys that I was around. See, we were just trying to survive. We were just trying to make it. You know, whatever Governor Pete Wilson at the time was doing to the young Norteños by throwing us down south, we were trying to fight our way back north. You know, there was some that cowered down, decided to put their t-shirt on and go hide by the fucking latrine area. And then there was some of us that decided that if for no other reason, maybe catching a body was our only ticket back. So we were in the hunt for that. You know, at times we just wanted to program and just do our thing. But one thing was we were not waver. We were not going to bow down. We were not going to conform to the rules and regulations set upon us by our enemy, you know, by our opposition at that time. Which come to find out, and I know as I got older, man, we were all the same. But at the end of the day, man, when we were young kids, we weren't. Okay? We didn't have that wasn't indoctrinated in my mind yet. I didn't give, hey, you want it? I got it. Dripping like water. And that's it. Guard! What? I'm about to go battery pack this guy. You better not. But I bet I will, right? And that's just how that was. Now, you need to understand that Spooky was about the activities. What makes me single him out as one of the hardest Norteños, if not the hardest that I've ever met in my life, was when I was young and I was about putting some soap in a sock, he was about putting rocks in socks. He was about taking it to the whole next level. I'm going to show you how Casitas does it. That's how he used to sound. I'm going to show you how Casitas does it. I'm going to show you the mentality I have. Now, where he got this from, I know he had come from OH Clothes where he was riding and getting off with people. So he was a hated individual. The Southsiders hated Spooky. They hated because, according to him, and like he said, he was SK all day. Now, I say that from a good place now. You know, I don't say that to throw it out there in disrespect, but that was just his mentality. He wanted to kill someone at all points in time. And he took the initiative to really go out there and poke people and handle it. You know, anyone that ever came in contact with him as a youth will tell you, man, this dude was different. He was definitely about his business. Now, my interactions with him were always of a vicious nature, a vicious fashion. Let's get it. And I like that mentality. And it taught me, you know, to have that edge. See, in YA, you needed that edge. Especially as a Norteño, we were always the small group. We were always the group, not picked on, but people always wanted to test our ability to hold it down for what we truly believed in. So those of us that did, you know, we had to do it time and time again because it seems like only out of 10 homeboys that pulled up, maybe 1 or 2 of them had the same mentality or was with that business or you were able to ingrain that in them. The rest, I get, what can we be friends? But now get the fuck away. We can't be friends. My friends are right here. My camaradas are right here. Canalismo at its finest. Go in there with you know what I mean? The binary people. I don't know. Study pronouns. Now over here, we were doing something different and Spooky was a ringleader. He was one of those individuals where he had the voice to get you all pumped up. Not necessarily a leader in that sense of, oh man, I'm the shot caller. There was never any of that. We all had an equal vote. We all had an equal say. We all had equal ideals, you know, ideas. But he was one of those vatos that I became accustomed to hearing what he had to say and liked it because, like I said, he was from the city of Salinas, which as a youngster, man, being indoctrinated and educated by my tios, you know, they always spoke in a high note about Salas, about certain individuals that they did time with, or, you know, just the legends that came out of Salas, you know, vatos like Maikio and several others. You know, it was always, they spoke very highly of these guys. So when I heard the city of Salas, I already knew I was going to treat any homeboy with respect, and he was one of them. So when he would be like, hey, we're going to get off, let's get off on these fools, fuck that homes, can't stop, won't stop, all these little sayings that the Norteños still continue to say this day, we were saying back then, I was definitely pumped up by it. I wasn't no pump up case man, but it definitely inspired me to go out there and get it for my people. That's what makes them the hardest, is because I wasn't easily educated or took in the ideals of other people that were of my age group. See, I was more of the older gente, the older vatos that are seasoned, war vets, vatos that have really been through the struggle. Those are the ones that could teach me something. The homeboys I'm with right now, we're just trying to get it together, right? We're just trying to get it together, you know what I mean, for power. That's what we were on. But Spooky was always one step ahead of us. Where, like I said, we wanted to use battery packs, he wanted to use rocks and socks and locks and socks. Whereas we wanted to use plastic fucking toothbrushes to handle our business, he was breaking metal down. It was always that next level, that next step, and I admired that. I admired that as a homeboy. We became close friends because we both had that mentality. I hate to say rider mentality because then people get it all twisted, with what's going on nowadays with the a certain group that formulated in the 2000s. But we had that mentality to go out there and ride on our adversaries, okay? And don't get it twisted. They were worthy and willing. Our adversaries had the same type of mentality. You had to step it up a notch. You had to play the game at a certain level. Because if you thought, for one reason, a vato wasn't thinking the same thing about bodying you, then you were gravely mistaken and you were going to get put in that hole, okay? You had to be on, I'll crack your fucking head wide open. You had to be on your Joe Pesci shit, because if you weren't on your Joe Pesci and you were on your Robert De Niro, you know what I mean? You were going to get De Niro'd, period. People were not playing with you. And we had that mentality and we knew. And like I said, Spokio was always the one leading the charge. He always was the one, he had something in him that was ingrained in him about the opposition that he just didn't like. And in fact, that made the opposition hate him. Spokio was hated. I used to go to the school area and I used to hear vatos mumbling and grumbling under the breath. Man, I want to catch that full Spooky from Salas slipping. I want to catch Spooky from Salas slipping, right? And that used to upset me, and I used to tell him, hey, bro, we got to watch out. Vatos are on you. You know what I mean? You're a hard target. He used to tell me, he said, yeah, I love it like that. Because, hey, all eyes on me, and that means the homeboys, you guys, man, it's up to you guys to make sure that never happens, to get off. Like I said, one step ahead. So we would do that. We'd walk around Spooky. We'd make sure that he was cool. But he was quick to bust through the circle and get off. It wasn't like he was PC'd up or no punk. He wasn't hiding from nothing. He wanted every bit of smoke that people had to offer. He was on a compa called Monroe. And that compa, man, he was over there pretty much dominating, who he got down with. And we were hearing about it. And it wasn't that he had this major hands. He was dominating him with mentality, because he had that never give up attitude, that keep going and going and going. And finally, Vatos would be like, I can't, this again. What the fuck? You know what I mean? I don't want to fight no more. We were young kids. One thing about Spukio is, over the years, when I did leave up north to Preston and he did parole, I remember that day I was on the bus. The day I left up north, he paroled that day. And sitting down, having talked to him years later, I would hear stories about him. We never got a chance to really kick it much again. My prison journey took me where it took me. His took him where it took him. Of course, ultimately, he ended up with 4 life sentences and 150-something years, to which, if the get back's real, we'll find out soon. But all the stories I heard about the homeboy was that he never changed. He was one of those vatos, when you meet him with his mentality, the way he was, you're like, oh, he's doing life in prison. They're going to execute. He's definitely not going to never give up. When I talked to him, we picked up right where we left off. Our conversation, the canalismo that we had for each other, never stopped. We was right on the square one, right on that same level. I consider him one of the hardest Norteño I ever met, because his belief in that cause, man, compared to a lot of people's, even compared to mine, is much different. Whether he's in good standings or bad standings, that's not the case anymore. He still is a Norteño through and through. See, that's one thing you can never take away from a person. Where they were born, where they bled, where they were bred, where they did their thing. You cannot, no matter who you are or what you are, you can never take that away from them. What is instilled in their heart and their beliefs and their mindset is always going to be there, and you can't change that. I said, you can't change that. God, can they change that? I don't know. I'm trying to change my calzones. Okay, well, change your calzones. One thing I know about the homeboy was he never changed. Getting at him, he was the same old Spukio, the same old Salas first, Norte second, Norte first today, Salas. It was always Salas Norte. And the vato was just on that same height. as he was when we were kids. And I appreciate and respect that. Now, I understand in life, man, you get older and your mentalities have to change just a little bit. You know, you got to go to work, you got to take care of your children, your old lady, get a mamon from a torta. I mean, there's just things in life that the wind's blowing, must be done. One never knows, does one, right? The mamons from tortas part is my favorite. But anyways, there's just things that have to be done. This vato was on straight gangster mode. Norteno, well, I'm sure he got him on one or two. I hope he did. But to what degree, I don't know. You know what I mean? But I'm just hoping he won. But he was on that gangster mode. You know, it was full go all the time. And even within our conversations now as older men, and we're able to reflect and talk and tell war stories when we do have them chances. Like I said, he's a brother to me. Okay? He's a brother to me. And you know, when I seen the documentaries about him and the books that are written about him, because like I said, in the city of Salinas, he is a legend. He is considered someone very highly respected because of the work that he put in. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people that will be like, oh, gangbanging ain't no, you don't respect no gangbangers. But when you're living that life and you're part of that system, you're part of that underground gang mentality, man, there's certain individuals that stand out amongst everyone else. And I'm sorry, Spencer Latira, he's one of those for Northern California. Now, for the little homies that are all running around right now that don't know who he is, you better ask about him. You know what I mean? Because that he's definitely someone who paved the way for the generations to come. There was a lot of sacrifices that he made and I made right beside him, that if we didn't make these necessary sacrifices, do you understand, there would not be as much respect as there is now with this end of hostilities. Do you understand that a lot of the Southsiders and Northerners that are locked up right now have a certain respect level for each other just because each group knows where the other group stands and what they're about. Okay, there were situations when we were down south when Southerners were first seeing us, they didn't know where our heads were at. They didn't know if we were going to put our fucking t-shirts on and tuck our tail essay, or we're going to let our fucking huelga wings fly, right? Definitely people like, you know, Martin Martinez, Sykes from Goshen, people like Spanky from Gila, Shadow from Richmond, Soldier Boy from Stockton, Spooky from fucking Salas, myself, Chucky and Puerco from the Sanjo, certain individuals that were there, Batman the Vice Side, you know what I mean? I give love. If it wasn't for us fucking holding it down and every day waking up and going back to that school area and putting it down and establishing the Norte as being right there, guess what? Vatos nowadays wouldn't have as much respect. Now, it wasn't just us. There was a lot of Vatos doing the same thing up north and a lot of Southsiders doing the same thing, and we respected that. That's why I talk so highly about Crazy Boy and Negro and these different individuals, because they impacted my life. These Vatos were down. They were riding about their shit. They can't, you know, you got to give everyone their just due. Spooky definitely was one of those, and he stands out. So yes, Spooky de Salas, Casitas, that's the homeboy right there. It's a brother of mine. Like I said, in over 33 years, he has never wavered in his beliefs. He has never wavered in our friendship. You know, he can tell you stories that I can't tell you about me. You know what I mean? That'll fucking stamp that all on the floor. And that was just a mentality we had. But hey, I modeled my mentality after him. I did change. We had a conversation. If you go back in my channel, man, we did have a live conversation. Whereas he's still of that mentality of north-south where there can never be no love, right? I'm not. You know, I'm different and I let it be known. But I still respect him as a man. And a lot of Vatos respect him because at least he said it how he said it. Fill it up with unleaded. Guard! He said that shit. I remember when he said that shit, we were tripping on. And that's just how it is. Anyways, with that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. You know, to me, Spooky de Salas, the hardest Norteño I ever met. Now, there's some other horrible food, don't get it twisted. But that was the hardest one that I met. And it was the mentality more than these. He had these too, but he had this more. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. Hope that you get every single thing that you want coming to you. Remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the struggle and strive for your people, your familia, and what you truly believe in, man. You can have it and you can get it if you're really with it. Go out there and get what you need to get, man. You don't have to go break the law to fucking have some fucking New Jordans. You know what I mean? Go to Ramate. They're cheaper. Anyways, if you like this, hit that like and subscribe with a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears Gun's crown. I'm going to continue to struggle and strive for what I truly believe in, and that's the unity of all people. I'm doing these little spills on the hardest individuals for each different group that I met because, you know, it's kind of like a profiling of this individual, but at the same time, everybody's going to meet someone that they consider, man, that dude was just that one, you know? So there's plenty of content out there for people to, you know, piggyback off of. One thing I do know for sure is, man, you know, these individuals that I speak on, man, I've just been reflecting in days, and it's like, wow, every one of them had a whole different type of mentality, a different type of wiggle, but it was the same old love song. They was with that shit. all the way from Federals to Southsiders to Northern, man, different. Anyways, this is the gun, gente. Bang, bang, you know what I do.